Welcome back. Now we will get to the teenage years in LQ's upgrades, as I like to call them, the autobiography of a Palladian light being. Um, at age 15, I'll start there because between the ages of 11 and whereabouts, where I was in the end of my early years stories, um, I had some in between years, was kind of finding myself as a teenager, and was a bit of a jock for a while. Wasn't so much into my creative bits and whatnot. So um, around the age of 15 is when I finally got back to painting and doing art, and so I kind of tapped back into everything. So that is a bit of a little grace period there. But at age 15, something happened that really kind of brought me back and started focusing again on my abilities. When my grandmother would have been celebrating her birthday, I forget what year it would have been. I was at the age of 15, and I had a very vivid dream of meeting up and reuniting with her, and we had a great discussion, and I told her how much I loved her and what an inspiration she was to me, and we said our goodbyes properly, and she let me know that she was always there with me, and it was amazing, and she was really there, and it was incredible, and it struck me so much that when I woke up I told my father about it, and he said, well, that's odd, and I was like, well, why? And he said, well, yesterday was her birthday, the anniversary of her birth. Um, so that kind of struck me, and I looked up on it and saw that many people believe, including myself, that um, you know spirits of the dead are allowed to contact their loved ones in their dreams, and there have been many accounts of these things happening. And for me to personally experience it, really, really changed it. And I think my grandmother, maybe she knew, maybe she had a sense that I could see onto the other side, so to speak. So she came through and kind of brought that very close to my attention and made it quite clear that it can indeed go on to the other side. So that was a big thing for me. And, I began to become interested in, you know, many different areas, but wasn't really doing much research. That was at the age of 15. I was in college, I was running around. I mean, I was in high school, just finishing up my years, I was doing a lot of painting. And it wasn't really until I graduated from high school and got into college and started my studies in Rhode Island um, that I really started changing in the way that I perceive things once again. Um, at age 18, in one of the most haunted cities in America, Providence, Rhode Island, wouldn't you know, I started seeing ghosts. And lots of them. Uh, the first was in the studios that I was working in at the art school that I attended there, RISD, in Providence. It was an old fabric mill building from the turn of the century, and it was chock full of spirits. There were about 10 of them, I would say, in that building, and they would visit us throughout the day. And I was not the only one who had experiences with them. Lots of the other girls had heard them, but I was the only one that was seeing them. And it was quite amazing. Most of them were still in the period dress of the time when they died in the factory. And they would generally kind of, I mean, it wasn't creepy. I didn't think it was creepy, but they would kind of lurk in the studio and hide and just stand and watch us. And, you know, they weren't frightening, and the fact that their presence was known by me really didn't disturb me that much. But that was the beginning, and that's when I started to understand, how to look, how to see them, and my senses, just knowing that there was another energy or spirit around, those became more heightened as well because I was just so much more aware than I had ever been before. So I had many experiences. Um, I'll touch off that just for a second to get to another really important part because I had many experiences with the dead in Providence, which I'll speak more on in a bit. But right now, I want to talk about when I was 20, which is really when, you know, the bells and whistles started going off in my head. Um, when I was 20/21 was when everything opened up, and some would say I got the wake-up call. When all of a sudden, it started out quite simply. I, I did lots of research online. I was constantly looking at artists and listening to music and whatnot. And, if there was something that interested me or I found out about it, I would generally, look into it and do research and, look online and take out books from the library and whatnot. So all of a sudden, just one day, I don't know why, I just suddenly, slowly but surely, you get this feeling inside that I, of the serpent being something important and the snake. Now, I used to be afraid of snakes when I was a child, so it was kind of strange to me that I would be getting this knowledge. But I listened to it and was like, whoa, snakes, like I would get into things and be interested and study them and whatnot. So I was like, okay, so I'll look into snakes. And all of a sudden I'm reading about the Kundalini serpent and the chakras and whatnot and getting, into going down the rabbit hole, so to speak. And it led me, basically, the need or want to find out more about the serpent led me to the Kundalini, which is really the beginning of when I became aware of the Mayan calendar and the prophecy of 2012 and indigo children and telepathic abilities, and everything started kind of unfolding. I learned about the DNA strands and blah, blah, blah. And, started realizing that a lot of the things that I'd been experiencing my whole life were part of this, and that there were things that I was reading about indigo children, crystal children, what have you, that are like first-hand accounts of my life. And as obviously at that point, getting older as well, starting to see spirits and have the knowledge of the other side, even more so, it just became very interesting to me. So that is also when I started really focusing on my light and my energy and positivity, and it never stopped. But that really was a huge point, because obviously it has brought me to much, much further horizons since then. So, getting back to the spirits of the dead. Um, at the age of 21, and I had many, like I said, I had many experiences with ghosts when I was in school and saw them in many different occasions. But, once you've had a lot of experiences, it's not worth talking about it. Like I said, if you want to hear all my stories, I will tell you, but I'm going to keep going at this point. When I was 21, I graduated from college and decided to stay in Rhode Island, in Providence, because it was lovely and I had friends there, and there was good business, because I'm also a jewelry designer by day. So, I had work there and was living in this lovely old Victorian house with a bunch of other artists. And this was really one of the most amazing times, I think, other than the what I'm experiencing right now. This was an incredible period for me in the sense that it was the first time I really completely became comfortable with and became friends with a spirit that was living in the house that I was living in. Yes, I became friends with a ghost. It started out, I had been over to the house before I moved in there and knew that I could sense the presence, and I'd seen more than one spirit in the house. But sometimes I see them clearly with their figure and the whole dress and everything, and like a picture negative, so to speak. But then other times it's more of just a ball of energy. So I had only really seen them as energy up until that point, and could figure that one was older and one was younger. Um, so I came back to this house when I moved in, and as soon as I moved in, all the other housemates were away on vacation. I was all by myself, and I came into the house, and I immediately heard footsteps above me, running up and down the upstairs hallway, frantically crazy, making tons of noise. I knew I was alone, and immediately knew, yeah, it's the spirit. I had a feeling it was going to do this. So